And suddenly the idea for this came up. It's probably been percolating for a while because I've always thought it'd be fun to tell the backstory about how a song came to be written. And so that's what happened with this, and then suddenly it just blossomed into this show. I'm out on a creative limb with this show. I've never even heard of anything like it. I'm going to tell you the stories behind some of my songs, how they came to be written. It would be great if you find the stories interesting. It would be fantastic if you find the show entertaining. And since there's only one way to find out, let's just dive in and see what happens. When I lived in New York, before I became an actor, there was a time when inexplicably I ran with a pretty hot crowd. Just some of the highlights were I was invited to Thanksgiving dinner at Joan Hackett's house. Joan Hackett was a very highly regarded actor in her day and very A-list. Other people at that Thanksgiving included Woody Allen, Debbie Reynolds, George Segal, Tuesday Weld, Milos Forman, Carrie Fisher, Rex Reed, and as I said, inexplicably, me. At around the same time, I was Liza Minnelli's date for Bette Midler's show at the Palace. How did I get to be Liza's date? Well, I had produced this big gala at Philharmonic Hall in Lincoln Center. It was titled, New York, a Great Place to Live. And it eventually turned out to be the kickoff event of New York City's Diamond Jubilee celebration. But that's another whole story. One of the performers I had for that event was Ben Vereen. He was in Pippin on Broadway at the time. Well, Ben and I became friendly, and he was about to do his first nightclub act, and he called me on the day of the opening and asked me if I had a date. I said, no. He said, you do now? I said, who with? He said, Minnelli. She'd called him to tell him that she was going to be his date that night, but he was bringing the woman he lived with and had kids with, hence Liza became my date. Well, it wasn't long before Ben and Liza renewed a friendship that they'd had a few years before. And when I say renewed a friendship, that is a euphemism. The three of us began hanging out together. She was at his nightclub act almost every night, so was I. And it was during this time that someone published a photo in a national magazine of the two of them that had been taken a few years before. And it created a sensation, so they decided to go underground. One night at Ben's nightclub act, I asked Liza what kind of song she thought I should write for Ben. Now you have to understand that nobody, myself included, knew me as a songwriter. I was still in the closet, in a manner of speaking. But to her credit, she didn't LOL when I asked. Instead, she said, I don't know, maybe You Could Be the One kind of song. You know, maybe it's you. While they were underground, they stayed in my apartment one night, and Liza fixed her famous fettuccine Alfredo for us for dinner. I asked them if they would mind listening to a song that I'd recently written, the one that she'd suggested. I have to remember that they had no idea that I wrote songs. I was about halfway through it, and I glanced up at them, and I saw them exchange a look that said, who is this guy? I got a similar look from a couple that had been at Joan Hackett's Thanksgiving, who now saw me walking down the aisle of the Palace Theater with Liza Minnelli. And on the way to the Palace, Liza even turned to me at one point and said, Chris, what exactly do you do? I couldn't answer. I didn't know. I'm still not too sure. But at least I got a song out of it. One of my favorite performances of Maybe It's You was by Billy Byers in a show that I called Greatest Hits at the Backlot in West Hollywood. And tragically, just a few years after this performance, Billy died of AIDS.
In every life, there's someone who's with you whenever you need someone to help you. struggle through. They say there's always someone who knows everything that you're feeling without hearing it from you. In every life there is someone who'll see, someone who'll make you be happy to be together, asking nothing, taking whatever's around, whether it's simple or profound. Will there be in my life? I wish I knew. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. I keep searching for someone who won't give a damn, who will accept me as I am. Why not now in my life? I deserve it too. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. Maybe it's you. Let it be you. Make it be you. Maybe it's you.
You may have heard the legend. You may have heard his name. You may have heard the way he scattered seeds and earned his fame.